Welcome to a very exciting edition of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains. Today, Jack San Felice is going to talk to us about one of the gunfights that happened up in the Silver King area. It's the story of Ned Fales.
Ned Fales was came west to be a cowboy. His real name, I believe, was Robert Good, G-O-O-D-E. Not so sure on the Robert, but I'm sure on the Good. And he came to be a cowboy here. Now remember, Silver King was a town of 500. Pinell City was a town of 3,000. What did the people eat? Beef. So ranchers came here. In the early 1870s, the first ranch was in the Superstitions. And it started after that. The ranchers came out here, and there'd been cowboys in Tucson for hundreds of years. Vaqueros is what they called them. And so they had to get beef. So he was a cowboy. And on his time off, you know, cowboys are only needed 2 times a year doing roundups, really, most of the cowboys. And after that, they had to go on the grub line and look for other jobs. Well, Ned Fales came into Silver King all the time because he was in love with this girl named Kathleen, otherwise known as Katie, who was a waitress at Silver King. And there was everybody, you know, that was, all the men were in love with her because she was a beautiful redheaded Irish lassie named Kathleen. But Ned was very enamored with her, and so was Billy O'Boyle, was the owner of Silver King. But you see, Billy O'Boyle was married, and therefore his affections for her were kind of guarded. But Ned Fales weren't. And he would also come to the Silver King and sometimes ride his horse in the front door where the saloon was, and then take him out and roar down Main Street of Silver King, downhill or uphill, shooting his 6-gun. Billy O'Boyle hated him for that. He couldn't do that. He was a hotel owner. He was a bartender. He was a bar food manager. He wasn't a cowboy or a shoot-'em-up guy. One day, he came into the Silver King Hotel, and Billy had been drinking. It was in the evening. And Ned come in without his horse, and they started to drink, and they saw Billy O'Boyle there. Said, "Billy, let me buy you a drink." So he poured him a drink. The bartender whose name was, by the way, they called him Stuttering Jack. His name was Jack McCoy, and his name was Stuttering Jack. And he was on a lot of the posses of the county sheriff, who was the most famous county sheriff at that time. Billy O'Boyle took the glass of whiskey and threw it in the face of Ned Fales. Ned says, "Well, if you don't like my drinks here, I'll go down to, I'll always do my drinking down, but I'll still come and see Katie, and I'll eat down here so I can see Katie." That incensed Billy O'Boyle. Now listen, he was drunk. He'd been drinking. Ned Fales turns and walks toward the Williams Hotel, where they had the saloon. Billy O'Boyle grabbed his 6-gun from under the bar, ran out into the street, and fired 6 times at Ned Fales. He just winged him a little bit on the side and gave him what they call a flesh wound. Ned Fales grabbed his 6-gun, pulled it out, fired 1 time, shot right through the heart. Ned Fales he put his gun away, walked up, and he didn't know he'd killed him. He saw I knocked him over. He walked down to the Williams Hotel and started drinking. Not long after that, now remember Stuttering Jack McCoy, who was the bartender, and the nephew of Billy O'Boyle, started talking bad about Ned Fales, because Stuttering Jack McCoy also was in love with Katie. So he figures, I got rid of Billy, I might get to take over the hotel, and if I can get rid of Ned Fales, I'll have Katie all to myself. that Stuttering Jack did not get the girl. Anyhow, he goes to the Williams. About an hour or so later, the Silver King shift lets out. And guess what? It's not payday, but they get credit. Billy O'Boyle always gave them credit. The miners went down to Silver King, their first stop. Not that far is the mine, right down the road to Silver King. So they go in and drink, and Stuttering Jack is talking about what an evil man that Ned Fales was and how he murdered his poor uncle. And he didn't use the word shootout, this or that. He used the word murdered. He gets these guys drunk. He's free beer, free whiskey, by the way. He's getting them drunk. He gets them loaded up. They, as a mob scene, they go over to the Williams Hotel, and Ned Fales is still there. They drag him out, and they hoist him up, put a rope around his neck, and they hoist him up to the telegraph pole right across from the Williams Hotel, and where the stagecoach stop is, and where also is the big corral down there. And that's was the end of Ned Fales, the end of Billy O'Boyle. But the moral of the story is that Stuttering Jack did not get the girl. She didn't like Stuttering Jack. And since she had so many bad vibes here at Silver King, and the loss of Billy O'Boyle and the loss of her paramour, her lover, or so to speak, because if you kissed a girl in those days, they considered you a lover, okay? Then she was sad, and they overcome by it, because she worked right down the road from where he was hung. Lynch, Judge Lynch took over. So she moved to Mesa City. And from there she moved to, I understand, wound up in either, Prescott or Flagstaff, where somebody married her, and that was the end of the days. But that's the story about the big shootout here. It was an old Wild West shootout. Perry Wildman writes how quiet it was in the mining camps, and Silver King was no, it wasn't. In real life, it was not. You have to read the other stories. One of the stories about Tom Kerr, who they hung on Christmas Day. And then there's the story about Ben Reagan giving a sermon down at Pinell City. And there's the other holdup men that they caught and had shootouts with, or killed them or beat them to death to find out where the loot was. Remember, you get the confession out of one, you got the loot. Once they get the loot, unless they shot them, that holdup man, others got away. They wanted the money.
I don't know how they held these things, let alone draw them out of a holster. If I were in a gunfight, I'd probably shoot from around a corner. It's much easier. But there you have it, the story of Ned Fales as told by Jack San Felice, another one of the great stories of the Superstition Mountains.